Embers, Part 1. You could have saved him. Corporal Torin Keth of the Intergalactic Police Force let the burnt chunks in his gloved hands fall to the ground, sinking into the snow. A sharp wind sliced across the frozen plain, biting at his exposed cheeks and ears and making his eyes water. Basanth was a mining colony situated on a moon with only an alphanumeric code for a designation, orbiting a dead blue gas giant with no official name at all. When people referred to the system, the planet, or the moon, it was all just Basanth. Keth had been assigned to the tiny IPF force here to keep the peace between the Confederate mining colonists and the native, semi-aquatic rodent-like leptures. But since arriving 6 months ago, he hadn't kept the peace so much as defended the colonists in an unrecognized war. Today, however, it hadn't been a run-in with a lepture at all. An angry miner whose job it had been to keep the tunnel entrances free of ice had learned that his friend had been having an affair with his wife. He'd burnt his friend where he'd stood, then chased his wife down to mete out the same fate. When Keth had heard the call, he'd hurried as fast as he could to intercept the murderer. But it hadn't been fast enough to save the woman from being incinerated. Keth stood, slowly turning to face the speaker. A Riven, a pale, gaunt humanoid alien with sunken, dark eyes and spidery clawed fingers. Her hands held the wrists of the murderer, wrenched behind his back. In the snow at their feet lay the twisted metal wreck of a flamethrower. The man groaned. "You caught him." Keth's voice was hoarse from yelling. "Yeah." The Riven pulled a blaster pistol off her hip and buried it in the murderer's back. She squeezed the trigger. The man dropped to the snow with a soft whump. Keth gave a startled yelp and started towards him, but the Riven pointed the pistol at Keth. The corporal froze. "Don't worry," the Riven said. "He's still breathing. Worth more alive than dead." Keth glanced down at the murderer, and indeed, his chest was rising and falling with shallow breaths. Keth eyed the blaster. Didn't know he had a price on his head. After waiting a few seconds to ensure Keth wouldn't lunge at her, the Riven holstered her blaster. "Idio Ja, bounty hunter. Corporal Torin Keth, IPF. Well met, Corporal." She gestured at the fallen murderer. "He was hiding out here after a drug deal went bad," she said with a shrug. "I'm surprised it took him this long to expose himself. If you're not going to haul me off to your station, help me get this Vivo to my ship." Keth hesitated. He probably ought to take this woman in for questioning, or at least to check her credentials. But at this moment, with the charred remains of the dead woman staining his gloves, he didn't particularly care who'd paid for this cretin's head. He stooped to grab the man's arm. Together, they dragged him, feet trailing in the slushy snow, to the bounty hunter's ship. Ja locked him in a holding cell, then came back outside to face Keth. "I saw what you did," she said. "Why didn't you catch him yourself? You had him and let him go." Keth ground his teeth. "Protocol stipulates that under the circumstances I didn't have the authority to detain him unless he proved himself to be in imminent danger, which he could not until he'd injured someone. I had no idea he'd already killed someone. I disarmed him and let him off with a warning, as per policy. By the time the news of the murder reached me, he'd already found his wife." "Oh." The Riven's face fell. Then she laughed, a single cold, hard laugh, shaking her head. Her words turned mocking. "All that bureaucratic language to say your hands were tied by the people expecting you to protect them." Keth stiffened. "There need to be rules to protect people. There are circumstances where—" Ja held up a hand to stop him. She examined the young corporal's face, as though searching for something. Her voice took on a hard edge. "And how'd that go for you? How'd that turn out for that woman?" Keth looked down at his glove, still dusted in black ash. He shivered, despite the envirotech in his suit, designed to protect him from Basanth's sub-zero temperatures. "If it weren't for me, he'd be halfway to Borhall," Jal said grimly. These weren't his first kills. Who else would he have incinerated along his way? Keth bared his teeth. "You've made your point, but what was I supposed to do about it? I'm not like you. I have to follow the law." The Riven shrugged. You wouldn't have to if you were a bounty hunter. Keth snorted. Me? A hunter? You're joking. The galaxy has enough useless IPF agents. It could use a few more real lawmen. At Keth's glare, Josh shrugged and tapped something on her glove. A network of wires across her bodysuit glowed a soft red, and between them flickered an orange energy shield. The shield flowed up over her head, encasing her in glowing energy that bathed her pale skin in sunset colors and lit up her hair like a nova. An anti-grav suit, favored by bounty hunters, to protect them from the rifts they used to jump instantaneously across the galaxy. All I'm saying is maybe think about it, yeah? The ribbon said, her voice buzzing slightly through the energy field. It pays well, and you'll be in a much better position to actually stop monsters like this Fivo. She swung up into her ship without a farewell. Keth watched her ship thunder up out of the atmosphere. Once it had receded to a speck, he turned and trudged through the thick snow over to his own airship, a battered IPF shuttle. As he reached up to pull the door release, his ashen glove left black and gray streaks across the frigid metal. A chill ran down his spine. Keth recoiled, ripped his glove off, tossed it from him, and plunged his hand deep into the snow. Ripping its mate off, he scrubbed at his hands, disgust roiling through him. At the ashen remains soiling his hand, at himself for not saving her, at the bounty hunter for suggesting he could ever be like her. Finally, he fell back, head falling into the snow. He stared up at the crystalline clear sky. An Emberhelm embraces violence in order to protect his flock. His father's words drifted unbidden through his mind. If he closed his eyes, he could almost see the elder Keth's face, though now dimmed by time. "I'm not an Emberhelm," he whispered to the sky. The same words he'd said then, when he was a boy. His father had laughed warmly and wrapped his arm around Torin. "You will be someday, son. When you hear the call, do not be afraid." Ash. Charcoal. A single remaining earring. All that was left of a laughing, dancing woman. The way her face had changed from joy to terror in an instant. Keth's fist clenched, his teeth grinding. A single tear leaked out the side of Keth's closed eye. He surged to his feet and stalked back to the shuttle. He climbed into the shuttle and blasted away. The bounty hunter was right, but rules were what kept people safe. He couldn't just dismiss them out of hand. If he did, he'd be no better than the criminals he chased.